Hey, everybody, this is Jason Matthews. Welcome to the C.R.E.A.M podcast, Cash Rules Everything Around Me podcast. This podcast was to make money and finances easy, simple, in a fun way. Make sure that you subscribe and tune in to the C.R.E.A.M podcast.
Jason, now we're going to talk about something really fun. A lot of people are sneakerheads these days. They got to have the latest sneakers and are collectors. Some people don't even wear them. They just like buying them and trading them and making money. Are you a sneakerhead, Jason?
I'm old now, and so I am not a sneakerhead. Since I'm now officially old, I am not a sneakerhead.
So you wear comfortable shoes, huh? You're not wearing Crocs, are you? You're not that bad.
I am. So I
Stop
tell you, so for my birthday, I got a black pair of Crocs.
Stop it.
I wanted to get some red or yellow Crocs. I saw some Chick-fil-A, those little accessories they have, and they just had some Chick-fil-A ones. I'm like, man, those go good with some yellow Crocs. I love Chick-fil-A. So I wear Crocs, but I still wear my Nikes, my Adidas, my New Balances. I still wear those. Now, am I going to pay $200 for a pair of shoes? No. But I do wear those Crocs, especially when I had kidney stones. I need something that was very comfortable and easy to put on without tying the laces.
Oh my God. I had so much respect for you, and I still do, but about 40% of it just went out the window. Man. Well, I'm not much better. I'm cheap as hell, and $200 for a pair of sneakers just isn't happening for me. And these days, that's just starting. That's not even expensive, right? But I'm a big fan of Payless shoes, and I live abroad. Of course, I live overseas, and it's one of the only places that has my size, which is just 11.5. But I like my Payless shoes, like $30, and it's sort of the off-brand Champions, but they're comfortable as heck, man.
First of all, Champions are off-brand. Champions are back in style. so yeah, Champions back in style. Don't worry about it, man.
All right. Well, still better than your Crocs, but I won't go into that. But yeah, give a recap here. I know you have some numbers for us about the sneaker market.
Yeah. So going to the sneaker market is very interesting. Is that the global sneaker market was valued at approximately $79 billion in 2020, and is predicted to reach $120 billion by 2026. Wow,
that's crazy. Yeah. That's crazy. $79 billion last year. And it's probably knocking on the door of 100 billion, which is a lot bigger than many whole industries. So, all right, now we're going to talk about, speaking of sneakers, the most expensive sneakers ever sold. And of course, there's Yeezys and this and that. I don't even know, but what they're, what the names are these days. I'm old like you, but there's actually two pairs of sneakers we're going to talk about that went at auction. So this isn't off the shelves. One of them was Michael Jordan's game-worn Converse. This is before he actually signed with Nike. So it was from 1984. I think that was the year he graduated college and went to the Bulls. So it was the summer before he played for the US Olympics in Los Angeles.
Okay.
And so they're called Converse Fast Breaks. And I saw a picture of them. They are not fancy, but they're game-worn. And they recently sold at auction. Try to guess how much they sold for.
400,000 or 500,000?
190,373.
Converse.
For Converse. And believe me, they're busted. So now this next one is just going to blow you away. This is like stupid money. So Drake, of course, collaborated with Nike and also some designers, and he made solid gold Air Jordans. So they were like encrusted in 24 karat solid gold. They weighed 50 pounds, right? So you couldn't even walk anywhere with them.
You definitely ain't playing the game with them.
No. Well, with my vertical leap, actually, you wouldn't see a difference if I was wearing those, but that's another story. But these solid gold OVO X Air Jordans, how much did they go for in auction?
Oh man, if those went for 100, I know they had to go for like $1 million, man.
$2 million. $2 million.
What's funny about that is, Norm, I just remember growing up, they said, man, those Jordans ain't gonna make you jump higher. Boy, you better not put those shoes back on the shelves. Ain't gonna make you jump higher, my mama used to say. So to hear that some gold shoes that definitely is not gonna make me jump higher because they're 50 pounds go for $2 million is astronomical.
2 million. Drake's just got too much money. He's just thinking of creative ways to waste it. But yeah, I'm gonna go back to my champions at Payless, and you enjoy your Crocs because we're not buying $2 million shoes.
No, sir.
All right, Jason, we just talked about inflation, and that's a big issue these days, of course, in the economy and on everyone's mind, especially when they go to the grocery store, the gas pumps, and what have you. The rate of inflation actually went up by 6.2% in October. And now they're predicting that inflation could be really rampant, be a big problem well into 2022, if not the whole year. So I know 88% of Americans say they're concerned about inflation. And there's also a lot of ways that people are trying to adjust or adapt to inflation. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, definitely. So 30% of people say they would keep using their current devices like phones and laptops instead of upgrading. Mm-hmm. So usually, especially around this time of year, we'll see people upgrade to the new iPhone or the new Android phone. And 30% of those people say they will not do it. 29% will say they put themselves on a food budget. I don't know how they're doing that unless they're starving themselves, because we're seeing a dramatic cost of food have drastically went up.
Well, it could be also not eating out as much, right? Or bringing their lunch to work or something like that.
So true. Even myself, I was like, should I spend this money on Friday for lunch? It's like, we had spaghetti last night. And I just end up having spaghetti for lunch since I was not eating out with anybody. I decided to do that last Friday. So I'm part of that group and said, nah, I don't want to spend that money spending, $15, $20 for lunch, which, after you order your food, you get your drink, it's getting up $15, $20 very easily for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And what other ways are people adjusting to inflation or trying to save?
So they're saying also that 29% of people will buy less clothing. So the hand-me-down era is back, which means now if you're a kid, you're the youngest sibling, you're getting the hand-me-downs for your older brother or sister, or simply you're not buying clothes. But that we can see that a lot right now. With people not going back to work, maybe you don't have to dress as nice. Now you're just wearing sweats around the house. You're not worrying about wearing the suit, the tie, the dress shirt that might have, and the white dress shirt that might have the brown ring around it that you get rid of for a new one. So I can definitely see that as be an easy one for people to do, is buy less clothing. And then they say 23% of people will put off home renovations. During the period of COVID, when it first happened, a lot of people was doing a lot of home improvements to their home. They got comfortable they wanted to get more comfortable at home. They was fixing up their kitchen, their bathroom, might expand their house during it. But now times have changed during this period of inflation, where now we're seeing 23% of people saying they're not going to do any home renovations.
Yeah. Yeah. And the next one on this list, you'll tell us about, but I bet this is even higher now considering the news last week.
Yeah. Then they say 20% of people will cancel or delay plans to travel. I could definitely see that. When you see gas $5 a gallon here in the Bay Area, I can tell people like, maybe I shouldn't make that trip. So we see 20% of people canceling or delaying plans to travel. Then you see 13% of people will drive less frequently to make up for rising costs at the pump.
Interesting.
It is. And one thing I noticed, I even did that myself, where I figured out I had some packages or mail back at my mother's house, which is about 45 minutes away. And I was like, should I go out there and pick it up, or should I ask them just to mail the packages here to my office? And I actually did that, and I did it. I was like, you know what? This actually is saving me money instead of buying gas that I normally would have for driving there and back, and more importantly, my time. So
you don't want to go see your mama?
I do want to see my mother, but
gas is expensive. What kind of put on your Crocs, get in your nice car, and go drive see your mama.
That gas at $5 is too expensive, man.
Hey, tell her to meet you halfway. How about that?
Yes. Then she's gonna ask me to give her some gas. She's gonna ask me to fill up her gas tank and going halfway. How cost of gas is these days.
Well, I'll tell you what, too. What's really scary that's not on this list. I don't remember the exact statistic, but because of the pandemic and also now because of costs, a lot of people are putting off medical care. So if you had that normal doctor's checkup, if you had, a mammogram screening, if you had dental work that needed to be done. A lot of people have just skipped that, not only because they're scared of COVID and being in a doctor's office, or they want to stay out of those settings, but now because the cost as well.
Which is bad, because that means you're shortening your life span and your quality of life, because you're just delaying. And that's not a good thing. In my 20s, building up the business, I sacrificed a lot, especially when it came to my dental. And now I'm making it up for those costs now this year, right? This year I got a wisdom tooth pull, had a root canal, and I got a new filling and cavity. So we put it off, but we're eventually going to have to come up with it. So it's not that good as we think.
Yeah, absolutely. So those are some ways the American people are adjusting to inflation, and we'll see where it takes us. All right, Jason, now in the podcast, we have the headline of the week, and this is one that I had to read twice. I was like, uh-oh, this isn't good. But debt collectors can now use social media to contact and communicate with people who owe debts, who owe them money. So debt collectors can now contact you on your Facebook, your Instagram, your LinkedIn, can contact you and hunt you down on social media.
They're about to slide in your DM, Norm.
Yeah, huh?
You think it's some cute girl sliding in your DM is a debt collector to see where my money at?
Now, well, no cute girls slide in my DM. That's not a problem. Believe me, I wish it was. So this is actually part of the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, which governs the way these debt collectors can reach out to or communicate or pursue indebted people in order to collect. So one thing, though, the messages must be private. So it's not like they could post on your timeline or, post things that everyone could see and tag you and stuff like that. However, that's what the rule says. But as we know, these debt collectors cross the line habitually and get really shady with some of their practices. So I wouldn't be surprised if you saw full on people getting shamed on their own social media. What do you think about all this, Jason?
I think it's chaotic. I remember back in the day, it was a big deal that you had debt collectors calling your phone, and people used to have their children lie about it on their phone. But now on social media, I wouldn't be surprised if people are going to be blasted towards their friends and their family about the balances they do owe because of their debt that they owe to some of these credit card agencies. And I don't think it's right, actually, that somebody can slide in your DM, slide on your Facebook or Instagram and say, hey, you owe me this money or not, So I think we have to really think about this and be conscious of it. And I think the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau have to really look at this and really figure out if this is really a wise thing. I think this goes more to defeat the lenders and the debt collectors instead of helping out the consumer so much.
Absolutely. Those are good points. And also think about the social media companies, how complicit they are. We see with the spreading of misinformation with COVID, how they dropped the ball and they were complicit in actually, doing harm, not helping. And now, do they have a responsibility to protect people who use their platform? Are they going to be selling data? Will people be able to use their ad data to reach, to reach people who owe money? So a lot to be worked out, and we'll see what happens.
Right. Think about it. They can not just send just towards your friends, right? Let's place an ad and send to everybody let's say you're in a small town, Midwest community, and instead of just even your friends knowing they owe this debt on Instagram, imagine if they blast it to every single person from your hometown about the debt that you owe. And so you walk around and everybody knows you owe this debt because everybody see on the Instagram because they made an Instagram ad or a Facebook ad on it. That's not good. Not good at all.
So we'll see what happens with this, but this has already passed. This is a reality now, and it sort of got swept under the rug. No one's talking about it. But I'm sure there's going to be a lot of lawsuits. But as you know, it's hard to go after these debt collection companies.
True.
Now on the podcast, we have Jason Matthews' interview with Jasper Smith of the Build Wealth Movement. Enjoy this interview, part 2 of 2, and have a great holiday, everyone. Take care.
How do you see when we talk about generational poverty, me and you both live in Oakland, here in the San Francisco Bay Area, but how do you see generational wealth just being out here in Oakland right now, or just saying large, the San Francisco Bay Area? What's the difference? explain or tell us what you see about generational poverty.
Yeah, man. I see it, Jason. So I'm a runner for all your listeners. I literally run all across Oakland. Like I run through downtown. I run around the lake. I run through, some of the hilly, I'll say hilly type of neighborhoods. And so you can just kind of see it. Like it's very visual to me of what communities continue to thrive and what communities, and let's just say Oakland, aren't. And so how long will it take? Well, maybe it takes forever for some of these neighborhoods to actually look a certain way or feel a lot differently. But I see it. I think I live it. I mean, it's very easy to see what communities will continue to thrive because they've always been thriving. And in the areas that aren't, they continue to never thrive. They're not getting the programs from the county. They, you look at housing prices, you look at, certain neighborhoods don't have an actual financial institution. All they have is payday lenders. And so it's very easy to see, just like in any city, where the money is and where I would say wealth accumulates. It's very easy to see. I mean, you can almost probably break it down by zip code. Certain zip codes, you already know what to expect by just looking at somebody's zip code. And I know that's probably indicative of any city. And so to me, it says, how is it that within a block or two, it's night and day in terms of how people live? It blows my mind that people don't get upset and want to do better, because you see the examples and they're relatively close to where we reside. So I live it just like you do, man. It's always like, why can't it be better?
Now, some people want to blame the man or the government or so on and so forth. Are you saying is it the man, or is it us with us taking personal responsibility? What's your beliefs on that, man, as far as breaking this generational poverty?
Honestly, I think it's a little bit of both. I think there are some things that have been put in place or that are not in place currently that have affected certain communities. I won't go into those details. We understand that, some people have it a little bit better off by way of laws and taxation, et cetera. But I also think a lot of us are afraid to look ourselves in the mirror. And I think it's a combination of, yes, there are always going to be external factors or reasons as to why you can't progress, but there's also that personal accountability that a lot of us aren't willing to take. So prime example, if you ever, and you've done a lot of community work like myself, when you're in an audience and let's say it's an underserved community, if you just listen, they're always blaming somebody else. If you just take anybody who does a lot of volunteer work in underserved or marginalized communities, if you just listen to how they talk, it's always somebody else's issue that caused them this stress, this pain, this suffering. And then I always kind of like slide it in. I say, so what's the common denominator in your entire life? It's you. And that is when I piss people off, Jason, because they can't look in the mirror and say, here's what I have done. Here's what I have not done. Yes, we know there are things that have prohibited you from not accessing information. But the last time I checked, Jason, when I do every workshop, everybody's got a smartphone. Now, are we spending time on our smartphones educating ourselves or being very social and playing around on social media? That's the conversation I can't have because people get pissed off and then, there's some colorful language used. And I'm like, all right, I'm just telling y'all the truth because here's what I see. And prove me wrong. Tell me y'all don't blame everybody else. Yeah, I would love to blame people too for things that haven't worked out in my life, but also look at what could I have done better or differently to improve or change that outcome. And when you can look within yourself, you can grow and move forward. And then you can change the outlook for yourself and your family.
When you say change the outlook, what is some you might not be super smart, or you might not know, you're not a finance major, but what are some basic, simple things that people could do to change the outlook of their family?
I'll give you a couple, Jay. So this is one that I share with parents, and everybody knows these things, but we're not executing. I call them my parental cheat codes. And if everybody did these four things, it would change generations. And so the four things are, let's assume a parent is listening or even a grandparent. Four things you should do for a child. And this kind of sets the tone for the rest of their life. You set up a bank account. most people kind of know to do that, Jason. So I don't have to like really go too far with that. Most people set up some type of an account when they have a child. They should also consider, I'll say, a life insurance policy. People, I don't want your child to predecease you. Nobody wants that. But if you think about family ailments or diseases, you can guarantee your child's future insurability. And there's also some other unique benefits of insurance policies that a kid could take advantage of when, it's time to go to school. So it gives them a little bit of flexibility, but it's a little bit more, you're taking a little bit more risk with the money as opposed to a bank account. So you have the bank account, you have a life insurance policy. I'll say the third one is some type of investment account. And I had to start saying some type because you said it earlier, Jason, everybody doesn't necessarily want to go to college. So maybe it's not a 529 plan, but I'm a huge proponent of either a 529 plan or what's called a custodial account, which is just an investment account on behalf of a minor. So whichever one you want to do it. But I need something that's in the market because that's going to have the biggest chance or opportunity to grow because your child is so young. So again, we're playing with that 18-year window, right? Gives us a lot of time to be in the market. And so the last one is adding your child as an authorized user to a credit card. Why? Well, certain communities have bad credit, have always had bad credit. This is a way to give your child an incredible head start. You find somebody who is very disciplined and you add your child and don't screw it up, because if you screw up, it screws up the child's credit also. But if you added them as an authorized user, you start building their credit history well in advance before they actually get a credit card. So by the time they get a credit card, you can explain to them how it works. They'll get an instant approval. Their credit limits will be extremely high. If they need to take out a loan, let's say it's not for school, but for business, now the bank can say, hey, you've got a lot of history, young person. We can maybe take a chance if you had a business that you wanted to launch and needed funding. So if parents or grandparents did these 4 things, again, bank account, a life insurance policy, an investment account of some sort, and adding the child as an authorized user to a credit card, that is how we disrupt generational poverty. That's how we do it, Jason. And if somebody says to you, well, how does Jasper know it'll work? My parents did 3 out of those 4. So my parents didn't add me as an authorized user, but my parents did the other 3. And they have retired pretty well. So if my parents figured it out along the way, I just gave y'all the cheat codes right here on the C.R.E.A.M podcast. It's up to you to decide to take the next step.
Wow. Jasper, what got you? I've been knowing you for all these years. What really got you into financial services industry?
Honestly, it was first job out of college. I had a business degree and I just wanted to make some money, but I was fascinated with like money and I realized I didn't know enough about it. And so going into the financial services industry right out of college, I was immersed in this world that I didn't really know anybody. Like even in my family, nobody pursued that type of a career. And so I was just curious, like, hey, what are these products? What do y'all do? And so getting into the industry, I was 21. I mean, I got to see the real world. And that real world showed me is that there aren't a lot of people who look like you and me, Jason, in this industry, which is indicative of why our communities struggle. We don't trust our own people, let alone somebody else coming in there and telling us what we should do with our money. So I said, well, I look like them. Maybe I got a chance to educate these people and show them that if it works for these other communities, it could work for you too. And just everywhere I've gone, it's always like I'm the only brother, or it's the two or three Black people in an entire sales group. And so I just kept seeing the numbers still aren't great, but that's also what encouraged me to stick it out, because if I quit and go do something else, then that's one less person we have trying to champion for, Black and brown communities within these various financial organizations.
Mm-hmm. Excellent point. Last question, I would say, how can we get more people into the finance? You say lack of it. What can we do to get more of us in the financial services industry?
We got to do a couple of things. So first off, we have to educate our youth about the career opportunities. I think that's the first thing. You and I have both done a ton of career fairs through the Urban Financial Services Coalition. I think it's helpful for kids to see a person like you or me, and when we tell them what we do, just to plant that seed. You don't hear kids growing up saying, I want to be a financial advisor. I want to be an insurance agent. I want to be an investment advisor. Like, you just don't hear that. It's not a common theme in our communities, but we got a lot more work to do. I think that's one. I think the second piece is for those practitioners who are in business, we've got to support, like the community has got to support us so we can stay in the business. I've met so many friends of mine who, not that we couldn't do the job, because this job isn't easy, but depending on what route you decide to take, sometimes it just gets too tough. And when you don't have that support and you see that you can't be successful professionally, financially, we tend to get out of the industry. And I hate that we keep losing quality people because they couldn't survive or they couldn't get the support. So I think it's a combination of supporting these practitioners like you and me and everybody else who's trying to do this work, because there's more than enough for all of us to eat. But we also got to keep doing our part to show the next generations that you too can do this, because a lot of my mentors, Black people, male and female. And so if they can do it and have done it successfully for 30 years, well, I want to be able to tell that same story when I get to that age, if I'm lucky enough to get that far. So I think it's a combination of those two things that could help us to really change the landscape of the industry.
That's a great point, man. And I think this industry just being in it, I think is a great industry to be in. I love it. You know, some people don't want their kids to go take over the business or to pass it down to the next generation, but I love it. And I plant that seed for my, for both my boys, all three of my boys, with another one on the way, to take over and run the business and to take it to the next level. And you see, when you talk about poverty and then prosperity, I can just see the difference between prosperity. Oftentimes it allows you just to be able to dream about doing some things that you normally wouldn't dream about. Like right now, I'm just looking at my cabinet. I got a couple different brothers who have different alcohols just on my shelf, right? And if you're in poverty, you ain't thinking about that. You're always just in survival mode compared to thinking about doing something bigger and dreaming different, and seeing something different. So I think you make some excellent points regarding that, Jasper. If anybody wants to get a hold of you, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, I'll have everybody go visit my website, thebuildwealthmovement.com. That's the best way to reach out to me. So then you can at least see kind of what I offer. I have a lot of good articles on there as well that I try to produce a lot of evergreen type of content. So no matter what day you pick it up, it's relevant to somebody. And so thebuildwealthmovement.com is the best way to reach out to me, and would love to have a conversation with anybody about, what their plans are for disrupting generational poverty. Because again, my vision with all that I'm doing with the Build Wealth Movement is to disrupt generational poverty for everyone, so their kids can live a life of privilege.
Before we even hang out, just got me just talking about it, just thinking about it. When you say life insurance policy on a child, how much life insurance do you recommend that somebody gets on their child who's under 18?
Usually the need, honestly, is not going to be heavy. It's more so from a dollar amount in terms of what the parent or grandparent might want to, I'll say, invest in by way of premiums. I hate saying cost. So I say, it's really indicative of the budget of the premium payer. So there's generally not necessarily a death benefit amount I'm really looking for. But if a parent says, unless the parent comes and has a number in mind, that's a different story. But if you're just trying to start a program, it might be based off what, how much of a premium they could afford to implement. And there are quite a few different types of policies. So there's some flexibility we could build into it to where if you said, hey, I can afford maybe $35, $40, great. That might get a child $100,000. So, but if the parent comes back a couple of years later and says, hey, I have some extra money, well, you could, add some additional money to that premium. And a lot of that money could go to what's called the cash value in the policy, which could help to, grow what I like to call another asset for the child. So, what I would recommend, Jason, is somebody really sit down with an insurance professional and flush out that conversation, because it is kind of a case by case. So I never try to give like blanket advice because it doesn't work for everybody. I would just highly recommend you sit down with an insurance professional and have that conversation about how much makes sense, and is it within your budget to cover said policy.
Man, that was great. That was great. Everybody, let's give props to our first guest ever on the C.R.E.A.M podcast. Can you say a special C.R.E.A.M shout out, Jasper, to anybody you want to shout out before we go?
Nah, I just want to shout out all the Black and brown folks who are in our arena. You know, you are not my competition. I respect all of you, and I want to see all of us win, because there's more than enough people for us to get out here and work. So I tip my cap to all the Black and brown folks who are in the financial services industry, who are trying to do better for their families, for their communities. And I just want to wish you all the best.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Mr. Bill Wealth, Jasper Smith, for getting on the C.R.E.A.M Dollars, Bills, y'all, Cash Rules, Everything Around Me podcast. Thank you again, Jasper.
Thanks a lot, Jason.
I want to give everybody a happy holidays, which consists of happy Hanukkah, happy Christmas, and happy Kwanzaa to everybody out there during this holiday season. I hope you guys are having a good, safe, warm family time during this great year, during this holiday season.